The Minecraft community is about as divided as it has ever been because the Wild update might seem like a great time, but it's actually the source of a great source of stress between the community and the Mojang developers, all because of the basic idea that the community feel as though the Birch Forest update was just in reach before Mojang says, that was concept art, not a commitment, and to which many players say, what does it matter? In 1 month, you'll put down your pitchforks and you'll enjoy the brand new swamps, to which people mock because you can't just claim you can't criticize Mojang even if they forget about all of these things. And so what is the story here? Let's take a moment to address the big Minecraft controversy regarding a free update which is going to be coming out in the next month or so. But the story of this division really starts with 1.17, which was a massively anticipated update after the success that was 1.16, the Nether update. The announcement that it would actually be the cave update that many had been excited for drove everyone over the edge. This was the most exciting thing Minecraft had announced. It was going to be the new era of even better Minecraft updates, and the trailer got everyone so incredibly hyped. And so then we waited as a community. We knew this would be a year-long process like the previous updates, and all of their communication led us to believe that there really was going to be this massive update releasing in June of 2021 until the very end, about a month before the anticipated release, where they announced they'd be splitting it into two. Well, logically, they need more time to finish all of the features. However, the first part of the update was a weird set of features which would never be released by themselves. There's a reason they called it Caves and Cliffs Part 1, I guess. It was all of the blocks you could get, and copper and goats, but not really a ton else going on in there, and all of the exciting things in terms of generation would be coming in Caves and Cliffs Part 2, but they wouldn't be new blocks anymore because you could already get all of them. However, the community was excited, and although the communication being so late and being kind of belated, they blamed the COVID pandemic, despite the fact that this update started in late 2020, which I'm no epidemiologist, but I'm pretty sure those dates don't overlap perfectly, but it was fine. We saw that they were very sincere about being sad about moving this update forwards, and so Caves and Cliffs Part 2 was going to make up for it, and my god, did this new generation actually seem better than what they originally had planned. However, Caves and Cliffs Part 2 is very close to release, and again, just before it releases, they announced that actually, the Warden hasn't gotten where we wanted it to, and so the biggest of the 3 brand new cave biomes that people were expecting was removed kind of silently, alongside, of course, Archaeology, which was indefinitely delayed, as well as the bundles. And again, it was a great update in terms of how much it changed Minecraft, but this last minute kind of like yoink and kind of unexpected, oh, that's not coming until later, left people with a weird taste in their mouth. 2 updates in a row had massive features held back at the last second, and so this was why people were maybe more excited when they saw that the Wild update was announced, and they announced far fewer features, knowing that this time we won't have to remove any, besides the Warden, which of course had been announced back in that hype trailer of 2020, but they also had the new swamp generation, which did look amazing, and they had boat chests and of course frogs. There was a lot of different features which were coming together, but they were all relatively small announcements because Mojang, it seemed, were trying to get ahead of the idea of having to remove features by being fairly feature light and instead talking about concepts. The swamps would receive an update to be more interesting and mangrovey. The Birch Forest, they didn't even commit to exact features, they just said that yeah, this is a vague notion we want from the Birch Forest, and so obviously these things got people excited, and the Wild update, people didn't even know about the size of it, which was exciting in its own right. And as snapshots and betas slowly came out, we started to see more and more of each of these features. We started with the frogs and the frog lights, a very colourful block, then started to come in mud bricks, the mangrove, the ability to see the deep dark biome finally, and man, they did some massive improvements that made it worthwhile to wait for the ancient city. This is what the original Warden structure was going to look like. This is the one they revealed when 1.19 first came out, and this is what they look like now. The ancient city is now by far the most polished and the best structure in Minecraft. It looked like they solved the issues of updates past, and they were steaming full ahead into brand new features, and then there was a little bit of a pause. Despite the update only having really had 3 months of feature development, things started to slow down significantly. Sure, we'd see the recovery compass added to the game 1 week, or the next week we might see changes to the mangrove swamp to make it slightly more realistic, but it stopped being brand new features and started to be mild refinements of existing things, something which was confusing because not only had they not gone that far beyond this original trailer and the original set of features they kind of announced for this update as the first batch, but also because a lot of the things from that trailer, notably the fireflies, which earlier were gonna be added, but then at the last second they decided that instead of frogs eating fireflies to make their frog lights, it could be magma cubes, and so the fireflies were going to be given another purpose. It was confirmed by Mojang, but we'd also seen nothing of the Birch Forest, and we hadn't really seen any other biomes or updates that could be constituted as the wild update. But it was fine, the update was going some places, and again, with Minecraft development, it happens in weird waves. Some features take a really long time to get behind, and this waiting continued until last week when an Ask Mojang came out where they officially decided to announce, again, in kind of Q&A format, but they officially decided to announce exactly why the wild update was the size it was, because they thought that the content they were adding was very high quality, and that was a key part of what they decided to add. And then they confirmed they wouldn't be adding the fireflies because of animal cruelty concerns. You know, you could feed a firefly to a frog in real life and maybe harm it. And then they also would not be adding the Birch Forest, which was nothing to do with like, oops, we're not adding this. They just said that concept art is not a commitment, and then moved on and said, yep, this is the wild update. And on the surface, this was perfectly fine. It was just a communication that they wouldn't be adding the fireflies and they wouldn't be adding anything to do with the Birch Forest because it was just concept art. Easy said, easy done. I think that from Mojang's perspective, this actually is really reasonable. I mean, I'm not assuming, unlike, you know, that funny meme that like, oh, they're taking 5-day weekends. I don't think that's true in the slightest. I think a lot of people at Mojang all worked very hard, and this is the update they produced. You can't say, I wish you could go back in time and add more of the features that were, you know, like promised or said or were in a trailer by someone else. And also, by the way, everyone would always use the word promised, like they promised us the Birch Forest, even though it's heavily hinted a Birch Forest will be coming, and it's heavily hinted that fireflies or frogs or chest boats or any other feature in this trailer is coming. A trailer is not a promise. A trailer is just a set of features which they have an idea of adding later down the line. King B Dogs has a great response to this where he says, I think it's fair to be disappointed or upset. It'd be wrong of me to invalidate those feelings. However, it's gotten them thinking about the current environment of showing things early that they're not sure of yet. They're not saying it in a bad way. It's just a balance to find between the community being involved in the game development process, hearing what they want to do, versus features that are going to be scrapped or changed. People were very upset when this set of features from that meme earlier were cancelled. I mean, the bundles or archaeology, the warden in the first few times. People are very disappointed when something they've heard about is cancelled, but we're not disappointed about all the things we haven't heard about. Many people were disappointed by the Copperhorn, he specifically says, even though that was something they were just having fun and trying out, and so it makes them wish that they hadn't publicly shared something. They're kind of having to reconsider after looking at this public response as to how much should you share as a developer with the community. Which is fair to say, there is a very small, but I have no doubt very vocal minority who are very upset with what things are going on and are probably taking that out on Minecraft game developers right now, and that is something that no one should be endorsing or saying should happen. Sure, things are happening different, but these are hardworking people who are making the game that we love. And I think, as you can tell from this Twitter thread, a lot of people are putting a lot of thought into this, and probably the backlash and the set of memes and the community's tearing itself apart over this is probably leading to an exacerbation of the exact problem that it's there to be angry at, to complain about. Sometimes this is the brutal thing about real life. Sometimes the solutions, the things that your problems cause can make your problems even worse. I don't know. It's like the broken window theory, which is that if you see a building and everything's fine, you don't think anything of it. When you see a single broken window, now you've seen some crime has happened, and it makes more of it more likely to, because you realize that this is a place you can break into, and again, that's kind of my attitude. At least I see something that's broken, it's like, oh, this is where crimes can happen. Whereas when things are it's same with littering. The more of it that happens, the more of it happens. It's a self-fulfilling feedback loop, and that's something we shouldn't want as a community. However, at the same time as saying that, you know, as a whole, this is a very negative thing, it's not impossible to see where it's coming from, right? Because Mojang as a whole, whether you mean ownership or whether you mean management or whoever's announcing and managing these release schedules, you know, there is some release manager somewhere who is in charge of doing this, and they have very different priorities depending on the situation, or at least they will profess and explain different priorities based on the situation. For instance, with the Caves and Cliffs update, it was very clear that COVID has been really hard, and so that we can make the best update possible, we're delaying half of this until later on. However, when it comes to the wild update, they take the exact opposite tact, where it's like, well, you know, we ran out of time, we didn't really want to work on this feature, and we didn't have a better way to put it in, so we decided to focus on the content we did have and getting it out now. The same exact thing can be said even for, the Warden and the Ancient City as a whole. Even though the Ancient City has been massively improved by the extra 2 updates they've been working on it, it's also worth saying that people would say the Ancient City does need some work. I mean, besides the clear portal mystery, that's a mystery. I can understand wanting to leave something for the future, clearly making a sign that something is happening here, maybe maybe in 1.20, maybe beyond. But also, just the Ancient City right now kind of feels like it's missing something. There's the hardest mob in the game that tries to fight you if anything happens here, and the reward is just a brand new enchantment. I mean, you also get a new music disc, you also do get this fun recovery compass, but you know, for the most hardcore of hardcore players who are going to want to find this thing, the reward is just that new enchantment. And again, for me personally, I think it's actually still worth finding, but the majority of Minecraft players seem to say, yeah, it feels like there needs to be something just a little bit more there that is kind of lacking. So you could make the argument that if the whole point of the Ancient City being delayed is to make it perfect, is to make it as close to perfect as a single human being can, well, it's clearly got one big criticism that still has not been solved at time of recording and likely by time of release. I think the issue that people have with Mojang's stances are not necessarily how they take them, because there's always going to be some fun made at the weird idiosyncratic natures of things like Mojang. For instance, the way Java and Bedrock are is a very weird thing that no other game is doing, and people make fun of it. They're not actually trying to suggest that either Java or Bedrock should be discontinued, but it's very strange that there's two editions of the game. People make fun of things all the time. However, when the developers are changing their stance, for instance, if they said, the reason we have Java and Bedrock is because we think two different platforms is better, and then the next day saying, we actually don't want to develop Java or Bedrock, whichever one it may be, you know, like coming out with different stances all the time is something that is very confusing. And although Mojang is a company filled with people, it is a company that has clear corporate direction, and when it comes to the things they want to push, whether that be the recent edition of the preview system, which I really like, whether that be the marketplace and, you know, big new releases, which they're promoting heavily there, when there are business goals which they're trying to achieve, they're very good at making sure the communication is clear, the development is fast, and there are no major hitches along the way. However, when it comes to the free features, you know, to go back to that early meme, the free updates which come out multiple times a year, it seems as though they let people have a lot more fun. They let people contradict each other, and they don't have a consistent goal or target, and that seems kind of disappointing. I mean, you know, for example, like, you know, is quality or quantity the factor in why we haven't seen the combat update? Is Jeb just so busy working on other things for updates that we're seeing at a given point in time, or is this a side passion project of his? There are so many questions we have about Minecraft, and ultimately it kind of comes down to transparency. Minecraft is the most transparent game in letting us play these early beta builds that they're making, and early snapshot builds I really should be saying, literally every single week that they're doing something outside of these super early and super late update phases, they are pushing exactly what they're working on onto the users. But now comes the time to question, is that too much? Is the Minecraft community too grown, too vast on so many platforms with so many opinions that sharing it is just impossible? No, I take the stance instead of the one taken by King B Dogs, instead of the one the community kind of takes. I think that there is this clear slider which can be done for everything in life, right? Quality versus quantity, or to put it in other words, there is a finite amount of development time. You can spend 1 hour developing a kind of okay frog, or you can spend 1 month developing a really well fleshed out, really interesting, really well sounded, etc. frog. And in reality, there's a lot of developers doing lots of different things, but the same idea is true. There is a fixed amount of developer time, and so you can work on fewer good features or more diluted and unfinished features. I think that as a whole, the Minecraft community does not agree as to which strategy is better. A lot of people who said that quality over quantity is the best thing in the world are maybe starting to reconsider when looking at the Wild update. A lot of people who said that quantity over quality is the best thing probably reconsidered when we got 1.17, but it came with just copper and a goat and not very much else at all. I think that really there is a proper trade-off to be made right here, and the community is never going to fully agree. Just like the meme that says that, oh, people are upset with Mojang, you know, for having so many useless ambient mobs like the panda, and then they're upset with Mojang for not adding the firefly, despite them admitting it would be a useless ambient mob. This is two separate camps of people, and ultimately this is how the Minecraft community has such big disagreements, because when it gets to a point where half of players think one thing and half of players think the other thing, there can be a middle ground sometimes, but when it comes to quality and quantity, when it comes to adding, you know, like say 100 features in an update that aren't so polished, or 12 features that are really well put together, the only middle ground that truly makes everyone perfectly happy is if you have 100 truly polished features in the update, but that obviously would take 8 times more time and effort and resources. And can Mojang get to a stage where that's possible? I'd like to believe so. I would like to believe that that is 100% the solution here. It's just make more quantity updates, Mojang, and make them higher quality. Have a never update or Village and Pillage update sized update in terms of quality and vastness every single 3 months. Make the game so much better that way. But obviously that's being a little bit unrealistic. That's like saying, hey, what if we could have our cake and eat it too? Side note, by the way, why are you buying cake if your plan isn't to eat it too? But anyway, it's like saying you want both. And so in reality, finding the actual compromise is always going to make some people unhappy. And I think the only way that you can, kind of mitigate the effects of a very unhappy community is better communication. Communicate more and communicate earlier. You don't have to show everything to the community. I agree with King B Dogs' point that there is a real issue with showing early development features and then people being disappointed when it doesn't pan out. But also I do think that if you're going to have an early development feature that you have to remove, communicate why that is and communicate that as you're making the decision. Every single time they've announced something, whether it's the cancellation of Minecraft Festival 1.17, 1.19 and the removal of the Birch Forest, it feels like they made these decisions way in advance and they waited till the last possible minute to announce it. I think that a honesty principle that will take you quite far in the world is don't wait till you feel like you absolutely have to tell someone the truth. Try to tell them a little bit earlier. Try not to seem like you're only doing this because really bad things will happen otherwise. And I think you'll generally have a better time. And I think Mojang could take a valuable lesson from that book. Sure, it does take a few days or weeks to produce an Ask Mojang, but maybe these are the sorts of things that are worth considering. And it's worth, considering just directly mentioning, oh yeah, we don't think we're going to have fireflies because of the fact that we added the frog lights via magma cubes, but we'll see if we add them. Kind of making every feature's status clear when it slides from this is something we really want to add to this is something we're probably not going to add. Whereas right now, the community is full on like, ooh, I'm excited at this new Birch Forest concept art, and then all of a sudden, after no announcements, anything whatsoever, we just hear it's been cancelled. We know that they clearly dropped it down the priority, we know there were clearly a lot of changes, and I think that taking more of that into account would probably make for a better, happier community, but maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is just my stance. Let me hear what your opinions are in the comments down below. That's kind of a cop-out for the end of a video, being like, hey, this is just my opinion, but ultimately, it kind of is. Maybe there really is the craziest thing going down in Mojang. Maybe the hardest time of the pandemic really was 2021 versus 2020. Honestly, a lot of Mojang staff talk about how they're still not working in the office right now, and that is something that sounds pretty crazy. It might be inhibiting the collaborative process, but hearing about this stuff would be good. In general, communicate and try to over-communicate rather than under-communicate. Or maybe I'm just saying that because I've been speaking for the past almost 20 minutes, but I hope that you enjoyed this video regardless. I'm pretty sure I enjoyed my flight. I'm recording this at 3 a.m., so if this was the most incoherent thing you ever heard, then that's the reason. And if this made any sense, then that counts double because this is a very tired toy cat who's going to go for a nap now. Goodbye.